Hello, crypto boys and ghouls, and welcome back to the channel, Tales from the Cryptmancer, where we feature content on play and earn games on the blockchain, such as Splinterlands. And in today's video, I wanted to discuss a hot topic, pun intended here, with Rage, this red worm dragon here, this airdrop that's coming out of the conflicts, our first Rebellion card set airdrop. And this is a beast of a card from a mana perspective, and we'll see how it does in the meta. We'll talk a little bit about this probably at the end of this video, but specifically this video, what I wanted to talk about were the print rate estimates as well as the initial pricing estimates for this card because, well, there's been a lot of conversation, I think, in the community about this, and I wanted to provide my view on this. The first thing I want to do is I want to talk about how the airdrops are being generated for this card, because I think there's possibly some confusion out there between reading documents or people talking in Discord and what have you. And I want to give you my take and where I'm getting the information from and how we're going to use that in our estimates here in this video. Specifically, the real Cryptomancer, the developer here, posted in Discord back on January 19th before the conflict started. And let me just read verbatim what he said, and we'll talk about what it means for our print rate calculations here. So what Cryptomancer, the developer, had stated was the way it will work is that the 4,000 guaranteed cards will be distributed. Then a second pass will be done, checking how many cards each player won. For each player that got less than their guaranteed minimum in the distribution from the conflicts, they will get additional cards up to that guaranteed minimum. And he goes on to state that he believes the original understanding from the Discord conversation is correct. And just for complete transparency, the original conversation here coming from Jedi Elf was they just add a bit here and there where minimum drops were not achieved via RNG. So what does that mean from a print rate perspective? Well, what it means is we're going to get 4,000 guaranteed rages as part of the conflict lottery system for airdrops. And then we're going to get X amount more. So whatever your guaranteed airdrop is, if you were unlucky and didn't pull the that actual number, you're going to get topped up to that guaranteed airdrop, and that's going to add additional rage cards into the print rate. So guaranteed 4,000. The minimums, I mean, we can just do I guess a estimate or guesstimate, as the case may be. There's really no way to know how many minimum airdrops would trigger in this particular case. I would say, just to be conservative, somewhere around 1,000, maybe 1,200 or so might hit there out of that guaranteed. We won't know for sure, but let's just go with a round number, conservative number, and say there'll be 1,000 additional copies of Rage printed just to cover the additional airdrops, the guaranteed minimum. So is that too high? Is that too low? Hard to say really without seeing past historical data. And even then, because this is a new conflict system, I mean, it really wouldn't be easy to estimate. So we're going to go with 4,000 copies of Rage in the lottery. And then we're going to go with, let's say, 1,000 for the topped up additional cards to get the guaranteed minimums. So that means 5,000 BCX of Rage would be printed in the initial airdrop. But the other thing to keep in mind is this is the first airdrop of the Rebellion set. And once the airdrop is launched, then this card can be pulled within packs as a legendary random chance on a legendary monster card. So what we want to do is take a look at, in this particular case, drop rates. So what we can see here are pull rates here for legendaries in a pack. You can see here the pull rate is 0.8% for a legendary being dropped. And right now we know that I think there's around a little over or close to 700,000 packs sold. So obviously some of those packs may not be opened. And if they're not opened yet, then they could potentially in a less than 30 days pull Rage cards. We're not going to go into the specifics here. We're just, again, going to use round numbers for this exercise. But if, for example, we say that Matt's estimate of 1.5 million Rebellion packs will be sold before the end of the set, well, we can use that to our advantage to kind of calculate how many Rages might be potentially pulled. Again, it's not going to be 100% accurate. This is just, orders of magnitude is what we're dealing with here. So if we say there's 1.5 million packs going to be bought, I know, we sold 700,000 already. A number of those have been opened. You could say, well, maybe there's 2 million packs opened. If 500,000 have already been opened, 1.5 million will be left and eligible for Rage. We're just going to use 1.5 million as the number here for eligible packs that'll have Rage potentially as a drop. So we take that times 5 cards in a pack. We then take that times by 0.8%. And what it tells us is there's going to be 60,000 legendary cards on average pulled out of those Rebellion packs before the set is no more, as a general estimate here for our exercise. Now we also know in this particular example how many legendary cards exist in Rebellion currently. Right now, you can see here, these are rows of 5. We have a total with Rage included, let's see, 5, 10, 15, 16 legendaries here right now with Rage. Now we could estimate this and divide this number here, 60,000, by 16 and kind of get the number of Rages that would be pulled, but that doesn't account for the other 8 airdrops that'll be added to the mix in the future as more airdrops, legendary airdrops, enter the set here. So again, you can see here, we're working with order of magnitudes. As additional legendary cards are included, then the chances of this out of the 60,000 being pulled for Rage goes down. What we're going to do, there's a total of 24 airdrops that are going to be included in Rebellion set for assuming that 24 airdrops, 24 legendary total cards in the set. We're just going to take the average. We're going to take 16 that are available now, plus the max, which would be 24. That gives us a round even number of 40, divided by 2 to get the average. We're just going to say 20 cards is what we're going to have to choose from over this 60,000 drops of legendary cards. So what does that mean? It means that roughly 3,000 Rages will be printed as part of just the pack openings, right? So this gives us our print estimate that we wanted to get to. That is 4,000 guaranteed kind of pooled airdrops as part of the conflicts. We said we were estimating 1,000 as the top up guaranteeds. That puts us at 5,000. And then we're doing an order of magnitude of a 3,000 being dropped as part of packs as random legendaries. What does that mean? That means we're kind of estimating around 8,000 as the total print run here for Rage as in this particular case. And I think that's interesting, right? Because now what that tells us is it gives us an order of magnitude of what we can compare to other historical cards to kind of look at what pricing might look like. And there's some caveats around pricing too that we're gonna have to talk about. Let's go to Splinter Cards here. This is a good resource for us to look at for print rates. And this first card we pulled up here, this is just an illustration of what Chaos Legion looks like just for comparative purposes. Grum Flameblade, one of the first airdrops coming out of the Chaos Legion set, coming out of the pre-sale pieces there. And was available throughout the Chaos Legion pack openings, right? There were 45,247 Grum Flame Blades printed thus far. Remember, there's roughly 2 million unopened Chaos Legion packs out there as well. So there's going to be even more Grums out there. So 45,000 is obviously a lot more than 8,000. And you can see that's reflected in the price for Grum in that Splinter Cards here is showing that there's 100 $1 cards on the market for Grum here, and regular foil is selling for about $1.15. So let's take a look at some cards here that are probably more applicable from a print rate perspective as compared to what we're expecting for Rage. We're going to start with the Rift Watcher legendary airdrops here. In this particular case, a legendary airdrop of Kane Hayes. You can see here for this particular card, there are 5,795 of this card printed, which is under 8,000, but it's kind of in that magnitude here. And you can see here, this card is selling for roughly $11 in the market right now. And there's only actually 9 cards, regular foil, on the market. If we look at another card from Rift Watchers here that is probably comparable from a numbers perspective, it's Ancient Redwood. This legendary airdrop here, you can see again, it's closer to 6,000 total cards printed, 5,997. And its price here is $11.14 in the market as a low card regular foil price. And there's 32 cards on the market. Both Kane Hayes and Ancient Redwood are situational cards due to their card stats, either low health or ranged, high cost, low speed, true strike kind of here with the Ancient Redwood. So they're very niche cards here. You can see here their price is roughly $10 to $11. Let's take a look at some other relevant cards that might be comparable. Now this card is a legendary card here. It's Phantom of the Abyss from the Untamed set. This is no longer in Modern, so we need to keep that in mind as we look at this card. This card had a print rate of roughly 7,000, so it had 6,859 cards printed. You can see here that its low regular foil price is at $9.90, so roughly $10. And there's 18 cards on the market. Again, because this card is, in Untamed and now in the Wild format, one could argue that its real value is roughly twice that price if it was available in the Modern League. So you could say it could be worth $20 roughly. If you watch my previous video, my hot take video, you'll understand kind of where I'm getting that ratio from. Let's take a look at one other card here. So this card is Magnor, again, legendary from Untamed. You can see here, roughly again, 7,000 BCX printed, 6,669 to be exact. A load card price, regular foil of $8.95, 14 cards on the market. So we're seeing a consistent trend here, anywhere pricing between $9 to, let's say, $12 a BCX here for these Rift Watcher Untamed cards. If we account for the, let's say, Wild format discount, you could say that some of these cards might be worth anywhere between $18 to $20 if they were in the Modern League format, as an example. And what I want to do before we give our price prediction here is I want to show you one additional card. And that card is Mantaroth, right? It's in the Modern format. It is a Rebellion Legendary card. And look at this. The print rate here is 5,404. So it's less than 8,000. It's probably about a magnitude of about 50% less printed than what we anticipate for Rage. And this card has been pretty consistently selling for around $45 in the market. You can see there's 147 of this card on the market. So what does that tell us? That tells us if Rage is super meta, like as meta as Mantaroth is currently right now, based on the anticipated print rate over the course of the set, we can anticipate Rage probably coming in at roughly 50% of the price of Mantaroth here, based on there's roughly going to be probably 50% more Rages printed. So that would mean the high watermark for Rage could be anticipated to be around $22.50. So that kind of leads us to our price prediction here for Rage. Over time, probably, let's say, a month after Rage is airdropped, and the initial circulation has been kind of sold through at whatever prices in the market at a discount perhaps. My guess is it'll settle somewhere roughly between $12 and $22 in the market, only hitting that high market price consistently at $22 if it is super meta. And super meta being as good as Mantroth. Now, we know at 16 mana, it is a high mana card, which, you know, precludes it from some low mana matches outright, like 12 mana, 13 mana, 14. Obviously, those matches you can't field a summoner and a summoner and rage. But you can fit like a 3 mana summoner. Actually, not with dragon. You can only fit a 4 mana summoner as a minimum cost, really, in modern. And then you're adding rage at 16 mana. And then you're adding probably the cheapest you could do is a 1 mana chaos agent and maybe like a 2 mana other no attack card. So right there, you're looking at roughly 23 mana on up as the only available rule set ranges you could play that card in. So it's not going to be in every battle play. Obviously, dragon's not always available either. So it might find its way into more of the situational card usage in the meta, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be valuable. Let me show you one other card and you'll kind of understand what I mean here. From a comparison purpose here, if we look at specifically Chaos Legion, again, maybe not the best comparison here, but the Chaos Dragon, right, is a very expensive card. It costs 14 mana, so almost as much as Rage here. But just because it's a high cost card and situational doesn't mean it's not in the meta and valuable. In fact, Scattershot, Blind, Blast with magic damage, flying, and high health makes Chaos Dragon a great card. It's used very often, especially in Lily type plays here. And you can see here the selling price of Chaos Dragon is $2 and roughly 18 cents. And from a non-summoner perspective, if we look at the regular foil Chaos Legion comparisons here, if we look at cards that aren't summoners, right, the only 2 cards that are have more value in Chaos Legion are Bakjira and Queen Mycelia. So what does that mean? Is that means even with Rage being at 16 mana and being, quote, air quotes, situational, it can definitely still be a meta and a valuable card. So again, probably the range somewhere between $12 to $22 because it has weapons training, because it has magic damage, could be very useful. One other thing I want to share with you that I think could be obviously very interesting with Dragon is you can have cards that specifically don't have magic weapon trainers available, now using a Dragon Summoner along with Gladiator Conscription to do some pretty interesting things. Again, if we look at, let's see, our Gladiators, one card that I think would be interesting with Rage specifically, coupled with the Dragon Soulbound Reward card summoner, the Helios Matriarch. You've got Crash Wanderford here. It is a 4 mana Gladiator. Not everyone has it at max level. Certainly I don't. But even if you have it, let's say, at level 4 here, from a Gladiator card perspective, it becomes interesting at 4 mana with something like Rage. You can run that Soulbound Reward card summoner. You can run Rage. You can run the Gladiator Crash here. And now you're at, you've got speed up from the Dragon Summoner. You've got swiftness from Crash. Maybe run it with a 1 mana cast agent with Phase. So now that's also getting boosted with speed. And you can, you look at Crash here. It's got Bloodlust. It's going to have a ton of speed. It's going to have 3 magic damage thanks to Rage. It's going to have Rage in front of it, perhaps, if you run Chaos Agent in front. Or vice versa. And you can do some pretty good things for a pretty low cost. 16 mana Rage, 6 mana for the Summoner. That's 22 plus Crash is 4. plus Chaos Agent is 1, it's 25 total mana here. You're doing 9 magic damage. You're very fast with your Summoner and Crash, giving you +2 speed, which is equivalent to Yasik. You've got Bloodlust out there. You've got, in this case, if you have a level 4 Crash, you have Thorns. If you have a higher level, you'll have Reflection here. Return Fire. And then if you have a max level, which you're pretty lucky, you're going to have Dodge on top of it. So, if you're not getting hit by magic damage, well, Crash, once he gets Bloodlusting, is probably never going to get hit by anything. So could be some interesting metas there that you can play outside of brawls using the Soulbound Reward card summoners. Again, we'll see how the meta works out with Rage. I only add that out there because we don't really know how the meta is going to unfold. And again, if it is a card that wins games and is a difference maker that people at the the competitive levels of the game want to have, then this card could certainly be at the top end of the range, like a Mantaroth, from a demand perspective. So there you have it. Going back to this topic, print rate. Well, we're probably estimating, let's say, around 8,000 of this card being printed. The pricing estimate sustained after the first month, somewhere in the range of $12 to $22 per BCX regular foil. What do you think? Are these estimates and models something that makes sense, or would you disagree and think that it will look something drastically either less or drastically more? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, keep stacking those stats.